Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing separation. Now, I'm not talking about marital conflicts. What we're going to be discussing together is the separation of components on RC models. And I've frankly got to put my hand up because it drives me nuts when I see receivers sat on top of ESCs and motors and things like that. So if you're looking for more stable and better reception, not only for your receiver, but also your FPV stuff as well, hang around, and that's what we're going to be discussing. Now, the reason for this video is actually a comment, and I'm going to bring this up on here. So let's have a quick look from Pilot Teen FPV over on FaceBalls. Says, rag the nuts off. Is there a reason why you didn't use, at least use SMA extensions? And that's just, it's sending shivers down the back of my neck at the moment for doing that. To get the receiver inside the fuselage, I understand that you had to use PWM if FaceBalls didn't work, but what's the reason for having a gigantic receiver out on the wingtip? Love all your content and keep it up. So, Pilot Teen FPV, brilliant question. You may have noticed my personal reaction, like shivers down the back of my head, down the back of my spine, is because what he's suggesting is put the actual receiver inside the fuselage and then run SMA extensions out to the wings for the antennas. Now, in theory, that works. That is completely plausible and it would completely work. However, the thing is that if you think about your receiver unit and then your antenna lead, is it better to have an SMA extension going out into the wing with a fiddly little bit and you're losing in your transmission or in your reception to have a weak link there, or extra resistance is what I'm trying to point out, or attenuation is the posh term for that, to have resistance in the transmission and the receiving? Or is it better have it on the other side of the receiver where you've got your S-bus or PPM or even PWM outputs on the opposite side? And that's the thing. In reality, it's better to have the shorter antenna leads for better reception and for better transmission. Again, if you're talking about telemetry receiver as well. So that is exactly the reason why I've been and put my receiver out in the wing. Now, what I've been and got here is that if I quickly flick across to the other image, which I've got here on my desktop somewhere, there we go. So there's myself on a fantastic summer's day. And what you will see here, and besides the fantastic sunset and some of the smug grin, is that you'll see that I've got the receiver out on this wing, okay, and I've got the video transmitter out on that wing, okay, and we might as well just muck around while we're at it. So what we've now got is absolute maximum separation. We've got our video transmitter on one wing, we've got our receiver on the opposite wing, so they are the biggest distance apart, or like physically the biggest distance apart from each other. And of course I've put the receiver on one wing. I haven't used SMA extensions because, like I mentioned, is that you would cause unnecessary attenuation on that side, and then the S-bus and signal, you would have to go for meters before you would run into signal issues. And of course, we're only talking a very short distance across the mini Talon. Now, there's another point as well which I'd like to point on here, is that it's really obvious when you spot it, which is that what I've done is that I've gone for, I call it a triangle, or it could be classed as a square, okay? What I've been and done, I've got the noisy motor on the back of the model, it has to go there. But the ESC is that what I found with the mini Talon is some people like stuff the ESC inside the model, and again, that's like a real big concern because the mini Talon, inside the fuselage, there is like zero airflow, and I genuinely mean that. There's like naffle airflow. There is this tiny little hole on the front which you can't kind of see underneath there, but underneath there I've got a little bump which is a little bumper, and there's no airflow going in there. There is a hole here which I'll just mark on the screen as well, and that hole is behind the FPV camera, so there's not a lot of air going in there. I do have an air vent on the top as well, but there's no real big exit hole for the air to like travel through, because for whatever size you have on the front of the model, you need 4 times the size of the air hole on the back or through the model to get the airflow through the thing. And the mini Talon is just terrible for ventilation inside the fuselage itself. So my way of combating that was to mount the ESC on the top of the model at the back, which is just here. So I'll just mark that on there. And what I've been then done with the Mini Talon, and again, I'm using this as like just as a simple example for a fixed wing model, is that I've now got the receiver well out the way over here. I've got the video transmitter over there on the other side. And then I've got the two really noisy components, the ones which would really interfere with both the receiver, the FPV, and I'll get to the GPS in just a moment. But I've got the two noisy components at the back out the way. So I've put the ESC on the top. Again, heat rises, so and again, I've got loads and loads of airflow over the top of the model. I have laminated on top, and the ESC does come home lukewarm, okay, from cruising around and stuff like that. So really good airflow on the top, waterproof as well, big thing for me, again thinking about flying in the winter. But the two noisy components are now at the back of the model out of the way. And there's one last component which I'm gonna use a yellow for. There we go, I'll get yellow, which is the GPS unit in the middle. And now what we've got is absolute separation. So if I grab a different color, let's go for blue, like a nice deep blue, or no, actually we'll go for green. There we go. So what we've now got is that if you think about this, is a triangle of maximum separation on our model. We've got the noisy components, or you've got your noisy components at the back of the model. And the reason why I'm saying they're noisy, you've got a motor which creates an EM field with magnets in the back of there as well. You've got the power lines which run underneath. Again, I've going through the bottom of the model, and they go out to the ESC, and then you've got the HT leads. And remember, you're converting DC to AC, so then you've got changing flux fields going on in the back of the model coming from the ESC. So we've got the noisy stuff right at the back of the model, out the way, like far away as possible from the GPS, the receiver, and the video transmitter. We've got the video transmitter, and again, this is a big tip, again, another big tip here. I'm trying to cram as much value in this video as possible for you, is that I always launch my models with my right hand, okay? I'm mode 2, so I have to jump down and grab the sticks and stuff like that, and it's really bad. But on a practical point of view, is that the video transmitter is next to my head, and I'm not going to swamp out my receiver. It's not much of an issue. Whereas that I've had this many times before, and this is why I go this route, is the receiver is on the opposite wing. And the reason why it's on the opposite wing is because like the X8L, X8R, the L9R, I've not had it with a Crossfire yet. I've only had it a couple of days. But the thing is that if you have a transmitter right next to a receiver, especially a high gain receiver like a Crossfire or L9 or even an X8R, is that you can swamp it out. So you throw your model, and you're actually throwing your model when it's bloody fail-safed. I did that once, and I swore blind I'd never make that mistake again. So I've got the receiver on the opposite wing to which I throw it. So if you launch models with your left hand, you want your receiver on the opposite side, okay? And that means I've got the FPV transmitter next to my head when I'm launching, okay? So the only thing I need to be careful of is that it might get caught in my hair. Right, so on a serious point, maximum separation. And then I've got the GPS unit, and again, the GPS needs complete view of the sky, uninterrupted view of the sky. Now, you can mount the GPS units inside of your models below foam. That will work perfectly fine. What you're looking for is to keep the GPS unit at like at least 10 centimeters away from other noise. That's like, for example, with the Eagle Tree Vector, is that if you use the Vector on in a quad, for example, or maybe you're using iNav and things like that, you always want to put your GPS unit on one of these little pop-up stands to keep the noise away from it, okay? So again, GPS unit is on the front, so I've now got this triangle or square of separation, and that's what I just wanted to convey to you. And again, we need to also think about the brain, which we've got in the middle of the model as well. Let's choose a turquoise color for that. Is that I've got the Vector, which is in the middle, and of course I've then got wires going out to each of these components. But let's think about these logically. The Vector gives the power and sends the transmission onto the video transmitter. Of course, the FPV feeds coming from the camera to the top. We have the GPS leads which go here, and of course I've also got an airspeed sensor on that side as well. So those are wired up to the Vector, they come in and around. Now, getting back to Pilot Team FPV's question, which was running about why would you not put the receiver inside the model and then run SMA leads out to the end? Well, let's think about it again. we don't want attenuation. We want to cause like minimum attenuation in our transmission or receiving signals. So if I used an SMA extension, that would cause attenuation the longer the lead, you know, for the antennas, the more power which is being lost, okay, or potential to be received. And also there's a practical point here as well. Creating SMA extension leads is quite complicated. Most people don't normally have the kit available to you, but I'm sure you've got a pair of pliers or crimpers, or you've just got servo extension leads. So in this case, where I've got the TBS diversity receiver out on the wing, which is also where I kept the orange 433 kit out on the wing as well, is that the antennas are super short. Okay, so very, very little attenuation out there. And then what I then run is S-bus or PWM all the way back to the center of the model, okay, which then goes into the vector as an input. And technically, for those of you looking at the other bits, I also run the BST lead, which comes in and then goes actually round to the GPS unit. And then from the GPS unit, that goes to the airspeed sensor. It is complicated when it comes to the TBS unit, but you kind of get my point. And the last piece of the puzzle is that we have the noisy stuff there at the back. So there you go. It's one thing which really, really grinds my gears when I see people who have just stuck the receiver here on that funny plate at the back. I just don't get why people would do that. Why would you? I'm not saying you personally, but why would other people do something so, I am going to say, daft? That's not the word I was actually going to use, but a more polite version. Why would you do something so daft? Why would they do something so daft? Because if you put the receiver, and again, I've just drawn all over this model. Why would you put your receiver at the back of the model when it's then got to go through a motor? You have 3 HT leads going underneath, which are creating their own flux and things like that. I just don't get it. In reality, just a tiny bit of thought or planning beforehand, you can go for this kind of maximum separation. And I tell you what I'm going to do, I've spoken about a fixed wing model here, so it's a traditional fixed wing model. I'm going to grab a wing. I'm just going to quickly point out on the wing what I've been and done to try and get maximum separation when it comes to a flying wing model, so you kind of gain like another perspective, which isn't a mini Talon, basically. So I've got 2 more examples here with me, and they're both work in progresses, and one's a Wingwing Z84. Okay, so actually I'm going to go with the Z84 because it fits on the camera a little bit easier. So this is what like a cramped situation when it comes to a flying wing. So we've got motor and the ESC in the middle, again at the back of the model. We've got our receiver out on the wrong wing. Okay, this is quite an older model now, and I made the mistake. I put the receiver, it's normally an L9, which it was an L9R, which was in there. So I've got the receiver on one wing, and then I've got the video transmitter on the opposite wing. I've done my best to try and balance these vertically as much as you can, and then the GPS unit is sat here next, again, as close as, like, far as away which I can get away from the receiver, as far as away I can get it away from the video transmitter, and the noisy parts on the back is that then I put the GPS puck here on the side of the wing. So keep that in the back of your mind, because that is exactly the same as the free wing. Again, this is a newer model, so look, I've got the L9R on the like its right wing out of the way. I've then got the GPS puck which sits there, and then I've got the video transmitter which sits on that side, and of course the motor and the ESC are at the back of the model, well out of the way of noise. So yeah, one of those things which really annoys the living daylights out of me, and again, it's just straightforward, it's common sense. Go for the square. Go for a square or a diamond. It doesn't matter which you call it. Just go for maximum separation from the different parts. And I'm quickly going to recap that, is that you put your receiver as far away from your video transmitter. Get them out on separate wings. Okay, that's very easy to do. Keep the noisy components, which is the motor and the ESC, together, preferably at the back or the sides, but depends where the motor is on your model. In this case, it's a mini Talon, so it's at the back. If it was a tractor motor, so we have the motor on the front of the model, get the ESC up near the front as well, and of course keep the GPS unit and keep everything far away from that as well. So maybe it would take the Mini Talon as an example, and say we had the motor on the front of the model, is that we would have the motor there, we'd have the ESC there, and then we would put the GPS unit in the back of the model to separate it away from everything else. And the last one is the GPS unit, keep it away from everything else, and then of course then you can then run wires back to whatever flight controller, if you're using a flight controller, back to the center of the model, and then that completes that diamond. So if I go back a couple of, there we go. So what we've then got is this diamond, there we go, diamond of separation. We got the flight controller or hub in the middle, we've got everything as far away from each other as well. That means that you're going to get a more reliable and enjoyable flight experience. So, like I said, big thumbs up to Pilot Teen FPV for bringing this up as a question. I hope I've kind of been and answered that for you. And of course, anybody else who's watching this video as well. Like I said, it's a complete big pet hate of mine for just seeing all this stuff like kind of crammed together and making things as like complex as possible. It doesn't need to be complicated here at all, because all of these things are just used. And again, when it got the receiver out in the wing, well then I just use a long extension lead, off the shelf extension lead, and you just plug it in. Okay, you can get 60 centimeter. I'll put some links to the twisted pairs which I use, the really good quality ones, which you can buy off Banggood. They're not cheap, but they are absolutely fantastic. And also, to be frankly honest, in a model like this, I've got my own custom wiring looms in there. So while I may have still like hinted that I've got PPM, I've got S-Bus, I've also got PWM channels coming back there as well. I've got the BST leads, and they are all custom soldered up leads and wiring looms, which I've got inside of that model. It is a bit of a mess in there. I'm not going to show you what kind of a mess it is. Yeah, getting back to my point. Maximum separation. Think about that diamond, and that diamond is also applicable to a flying wing. Just note that it's slightly elongated because of the nature of the wing. So receiver, video transmitter, motor and ESC, it's like a squashed diamond. So keep that in the back of your mind. I sincerely hope that has been and helped you. And if you have any questions or comments about this, please just ask down in the comments section underneath this video on YouTube. I would love to hear your opinions back on this. Are you someone like me which looks at someone else's model and go, why the did you do that? And just like scratch your head and just don't understand why. And that's just, no apologies, it just drives me nuts. Are you one of these people? Or maybe you just don't care and you flame for a quadrillion miles and it's never been an issue for you. I don't know. Let me know. Comment section underneath this video. So with that said, for myself, Matt, I sincerely hope that you've been and found this video useful. If you have, hit the thumbs up underneath this video. And of course, if you're new here, I'm Matt. Welcome aboard. Don't forget to press the red subscribe button. And because YouTube is a ball bag and likes you to double subscribe, if you would like to be notified when the next video is out, press the little bell icon and you balls will let you know the next video is out. So from myself, Matt, thanks for watching. Cheerios!